The second my phone lit up, I already knew it wasn't them. Happy birthday, Mom. We're busy. Talk later. That was it. No call. No voice. No we love you. Just a message that felt like it was written on the way to somewhere more important. My name is Margaret Collins. I'm 62 years old, and I was standing in my kitchen on my birthday staring at a table that no one was coming to sit at. 3 plates. 3 cups. A cake I bought myself because I still didn't want to believe I had been forgotten. The silence in the house didn't feel empty. It felt decided. Like something had already been chosen for me without asking. I kept checking my phone again and again, as if repetition could turn absence into presence. Tom used to call me first thing in the morning. Sophie used to send me voice notes just to tell me she saw a funny dog on the street. Now I was lucky if I got a sentence. Busy, they always said. That word had become the space where I used to exist. But that morning, something felt off in a way I couldn't explain. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just final. I walked to the sink and turned on the water just to break the silence in the house. That's when I saw the envelope on the counter. The one I had signed months ago and never thought about again. My signature was on it. Clear. Permanent. I remembered the day I signed it. Tom said it was urgent. Sophie said it would fix everything. The man at the office asked if I understood what I was giving up. I told him, it's for my children. Because that was always enough reason. But standing there now, in a house that suddenly felt too quiet to belong to me, I realized something I had never allowed myself to think before. I had given them everything they asked for. And somehow I was still the last person they thought about. They didn't call back that night. Not even once. I kept the phone on the table, face up, like it might suddenly decide to change its mind if I watched it long enough. It didn't. The cake stayed untouched in the fridge, wrapped in plastic like a promise nobody intended to keep. I told myself they were just tired. Overworked. Living lives that moved faster than mine. That was the story I repeated every time silence started to feel personal. But silence doesn't feel neutral after a while. It starts to feel like a decision someone made about you. Tom used to tell me everything. Even things he shouldn't have. Sophie used to ask me for advice about things she never actually followed. Now I learned about their lives in fragments. Short messages. Delayed replies. Half conversations that never fully arrived. And every time I tried to reach them, I told myself not to be a burden. That was the word that stayed with me the longest. Burden. I didn't want to become one. Not to my own children. So I stopped calling as often. Stopped asking as many questions. I started waiting for them instead. Waiting became easier than rejection. But that night, as I sat alone in the kitchen listening to the fridge hum again and again, I noticed something I had been ignoring for months. The bills were gone from my desk. Not late. Not unpaid. Gone. I remembered signing something. Helping Tom temporarily. Helping Sophie get back on her feet. They both promised it was just a phase. Just a short period where they needed support. I believed them. Because believing them was easier than asking too many questions. But now I was sitting in a house that felt too quiet to belong to someone who still had a family. And for the first time, I wondered something I had never allowed myself to ask before. If I had helped them stand again, why did it feel like I was the one who had fallen behind? The first real crack didn't come with a phone call. It came with a birthday card I never received. I only realized it a week later when I saw Sophie post a photo online. Balloons, laughter, a dinner table full of people. Best night with my family, the caption said. I stared at it longer than I should have. Because I wasn't in it. Not even in the background. I zoomed in, thinking maybe I had missed something. A reflection. A shadow. Anything. But there was nothing. Just strangers, friends, laughter, and my daughter smiling like she had never forgotten me at all. I remember whispering, it must be a different day. Because that was easier than the other thought forming in my head. That I simply wasn't there. Tom didn't answer my call that night. Not the first one. Not the second. When he finally texted back, it was short. Work's crazy. Call you later. Later. Again. I sat at the kitchen table holding the phone until my hand went numb. I used to know their schedules. Their habits. The small rhythms of their lives. Now I was outside of all of it. Looking in through gaps I didn't understand. That's when I opened my bank folder. Just to check something simple. Routine. Safe. But the numbers didn't feel safe anymore. Something had changed. Large transfers. Multiple withdrawals. One signature I didn't fully recognize at first, and then I did. Mine. I remembered sitting at Tom's kitchen table months ago. Sophie crying on speakerphone. Tom saying, Mom, we'll fix everything after this, I promise. The papers were thick. Too many pages. Too many words I didn't read carefully enough. And I remember asking, is this necessary? Tom smiled. It's temporary, Mom. Just trust us. So I did. Because trusting your children is supposed to be the easiest thing in the world. But now I was staring at my own name moving money I didn't fully understand into places I had never chosen. And for the first time, I asked myself a question I had avoided for months. What exactly had I agreed to help them survive? And why did it feel like I was the one who had disappeared in the process? I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I just lay in bed listening to the house settle around me, every small sound feeling louder than it should have been. At 2:17 a.m., my phone lit up. A message from Tom. Mom, don't worry about the money stuff. Everything is under control. Under control. That phrase again. The one that always meant I wasn't supposed to ask questions. I stared at the ceiling for a long time after that, replaying every conversation I had ignored. Every trust me. Every it's temporary. Every time I chose peace instead of clarity. In the morning, I drove past Sophie's apartment. I don't know why. I told myself it was just on the way to the store. Her car wasn't there. Through the window I saw boxes stacked near the door. Packed. Ready. Like a life preparing to move without telling me where it was going. I didn't knock. I just stood there for a moment longer than I should have, and then left before anyone could see me. That afternoon, I finally asked the bank for full statements. Not summaries. Not highlights. Everything. The woman behind the counter smiled politely and said, that will take some time. Time. Another word that had started meaning something different lately. When the documents arrived, I sat at my kitchen table and spread them out like pieces of something I no longer recognized. Names. Transfers. Signatures. Mine was everywhere. Not once. Not twice. Everywhere. But what I didn't understand yet was who else had been inside my decisions. Because at the bottom of one page, there was a note I hadn't seen before. A reference number. An illegal contact linked to it. Not Tom. Not Sophie. Someone else. And when I read the name, I felt something inside me go still in a way I couldn't explain yet. Like the story I thought I was living had just changed direction completely. I didn't tell them I had found the documents. Not yet. Something stopped me. Not for exactly more like instinct. The kind of feeling you get when you realize the truth is heavier than you expected to carry alone. Instead, I started watching. Quietly. Carefully. I called Tom again 2 days later. He didn't pick up. But I heard his voice in the background of another call I wasn't supposed to hear. Laughing. Relaxed. Normal. It didn't sound like someone whose life was under control. It sounded like someone who had already moved on from worrying. Sophie replied to my message hours later. Just a photo of a coffee cup with the words, "Can't talk now, Mom. Can't talk now. Not I'm busy. Not later." Just a wall. I started noticing small things after that. Things I had ignored before because they didn't seem connected. A change in tone. A delay in responses. A missing call that used to always happen on Sundays. Even when they did respond, it felt rehearsed. Short. Safe. Like they were managing a conversation instead of having one. One evening, I asked Tom directly, "Is everything okay between us?" There was a pause before he answered. "Of course, Mom. Why wouldn't it be?" But he didn't ask why I was asking. And that was the first time I realized something important. People who care about you don't let silence become a habit. That same night, I checked the bank folder again. Another transfer had gone through. Larger this time. And beside it, another signature approval I didn't remember fully agreeing to. My stomach tightened. Because this wasn't just care anymore. It was coordination. And I was starting to feel like I wasn't part of the decisions happening in my own life. The call came from an unknown number again. This time, I answered immediately. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. Then a woman's voice. Calm. Professional. "Mrs. Collins, this is regarding the financial authorization linked to your account." I sat down without realizing it. "Yes?" I said slowly. "There are multiple active agreements tied to recent transactions. Some of them require confirmation that you personally authorized ongoing usage." My throat tightened. "I did," I said, though my voice didn't sound as certain as I wanted it to. A pause. "Are you aware that some of these authorizations extend beyond family assistance?" Beyond family assistance. The phrase didn't make sense at first. "What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean commercial usage," she said carefully. "Image-related permissions, identity-linked documentation, and financial representation clauses." I looked at the papers on my table again. Slowly. Like they might rearrange themselves if I stared long enough. "That's not," I started, then stopped. Because I suddenly wasn't sure what I had signed anymore. "We recommend reviewing the full scope of agreements," she continued. "There are additional parties listed on the filings." Who? I asked immediately. But there was a pause on her end. A careful one. I'm not authorized to disclose that directly, she said. And just like that, the call ended politely. No answers. No clarity. Just a door quietly closing. I stayed seated for a long time after that, phone still in my hand. Because one thing was becoming impossible to ignore. This wasn't just about my children anymore. Someone else had been inside my life. Inside my decisions. Inside my name. And I was only now starting to see the shape of it. I didn't tell Tom about the call. Not yet. Instead, I went back through everything again. Slowly this time. Like reading a story I had once believed without question. Each page of the documents felt different now. Not familiar. Not safe. Carefully structured. Too carefully. Like someone had expected me not to look too closely. That evening, I asked Sophie to video call me. She didn't answer. 2 hours later, I got a voice message instead. Hey Mom, I'm in a meeting. What's wrong? What's wrong? That question hit me harder than it should have. Because I suddenly realized I didn't know how to explain it without sounding unstable. Without sounding like the version of me they were slowly learning to ignore. So I didn't reply. I just listened to her voice over and over again. Trying to find something real in it. Something that still felt like my daughter. But it felt distant. Controlled. Edited, somehow. Like even her voice had learned how to keep me at a safe distance. Later that night, I drove past Tom's office building. Lights still on. Late hours. I sat in the car for a long time, watching silhouettes move behind glass walls. People talking. Laughing. Living lives I wasn't part of anymore. And that's when I saw him. Tom. He was standing near the entrance, talking to someone I didn't recognize. A woman. Confident posture. Businesslike. She handed him a folder. He nodded like he understood something I didn't. Then she said something that made him smile. A small, calm smile I hadn't seen in months. Not the smile of a son talking to his mother. The smile of someone inside a plan. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Because suddenly I wasn't looking at confusion anymore. I was looking at coordination. And I realized something terrifying. I wasn't being left out. I was being managed. The next morning, I went back to the bank in person. Not for questions. For answers. I brought every document I had. Every page, every signature, every transfer I could find. I laid them on the counter like evidence in a case I didn't know I was part of. The same woman from before looked at me differently this time. Less polite. More careful. I need to understand what I signed, I said. She nodded slowly. We can escalate the review. That word again. Review. Delay. Distance. I sat in the waiting area for almost an hour before someone else came out. A man this time. Older. Serious expression. He didn't sit down immediately. Just looked at the papers. Then at me. Mrs. Collins, he said carefully, do you remember authorizing your identity to be used in third-party financial structuring? My stomach dropped. My what? He flipped a page toward me. A clause highlighted. Words I had never paid attention to before. Image rights, identity linkage, representation usage. This is standard in certain investment-backed family assistance agreements, he said. But nothing about this felt standard. This is my life, I said quietly. He hesitated. Just for a second. Then added, and it appears it has been partially integrated into a separate portfolio structure. A pause. Linked to your son's business entity and an external consulting partner. External consulting partner. That was the first time I felt something shift completely. Not confusion anymore. Recognition. There had been someone else all along. And I had never been told where my consent actually ended. I drove home without remembering most of the road. My hands stayed tight on the wheel the entire time, like letting go would make everything collapse faster. When I walked into the house, it didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like a place I had been temporarily allowed to stay in. I sat at the kitchen table and looked at the documents again. This time, I didn't read them slowly. I read them like I was trying to find the moment everything changed. And I found it. A clause I had missed before. A reference to identity utilization for brand and investment representation. My breath stopped halfway through reading it. Because suddenly, everything made sense in a way I didn't want it to. The photos. The structured messages. The controlled conversations. The calm tone whenever I asked too many questions. It wasn't just neglect. It was design. I picked up my phone and called Tom. He answered on the third ring. Mom? I didn't waste time. Who is she? I asked. Silence. A long one. Then. What are you talking about? I saw you, I said. At your office. With her. Another pause. Shorter this time. More careful. Mom, that's just a consultant. It's work-related. Work-related. Like I was supposed to accept that word and stop thinking. But I didn't stop. I went to the bank, I said. I saw the agreements. Silence again. But different now. Heavier. And then his voice changed slightly. Not angry. Not surprised. Controlled. Mum, you don't understand the structure of what we're building. We. That word hit harder than anything else. Because it confirmed something I had been avoiding. I wasn't just helping my children anymore. I was inside something I had never agreed to be part of. And I was starting to realize I might not be able to simply walk out of it. I didn't sleep at all after that call. Not because I was afraid, but because something in me had shifted and I couldn't go back to pretending I didn't hear it. We're building. That word kept repeating in my head like it didn't belong to a conversation about children and a mother. It belonged to something else. Something structured. Something intentional. The next morning, I didn't call Tom. I went somewhere else instead. I went to the address listed in the documents. A building I had never seen before. Glass. Modern. Too clean. Too quiet. Reception asked for my name. When I said it, the woman paused for half a second longer than normal. Then made a call without explaining why. 10 minutes later, a man came down. Not Tom. Not anyone I knew. He looked at me like he already expected me. Mrs. Collins, he said calmly. I was wondering when you would come. That sentence didn't feel like a greeting. It felt like confirmation. He led me to a meeting room without asking permission again. And then he placed a folder on the table. Inside were photos, screenshots, financial projections. My name attached to branding structures I didn't recognize as my life anymore. And then I saw it. A section titled Narrative Asset Integration. My voice went quiet. What is this? He didn't hesitate. Your profile is part of a larger representation model, he said. Family narrative. Trust-based financial storytelling. I stared at him. You used me, I said slowly. He corrected me gently. Optimized your role. That word broke something in me. Optimized. Like I wasn't a person. Just a component. And for the first time, I understood what Tom meant when he said I didn't understand the structure. Because I finally did. And it terrified me. I left the building without saying another word. My legs moved before my thoughts caught up. Outside, the air felt colder than it should have been. Like the world had adjusted slightly while I wasn't looking. I sat in my car for a long time. Just staring at the steering wheel. Trying to understand when my life stopped being mine in ways I never noticed. My phone rang again. Tom. I didn't answer immediately. I let it ring. Then again. And again. Finally, I picked up. Mom, he said quickly. Where are you? I looked at the building through the windshield. I know everything, I said. Silence. Not surprise. Not confusion. Calculation. Then he spoke differently. Slower. Controlled. You went there, he said. It wasn't a question. It was confirmation. Yes, I said. Another pause. Then. You weren't supposed to see the full structure yet. That sentence did something worse than shock. It made everything feel intentional. I gripped the phone tighter. Am I part of a project to you? I asked. Long silence. Then Tom finally said. You're part of something bigger than you think, Mom. And in that moment, I realized something I didn't want to admit. I wasn't discovering the truth. I was being allowed to reach it. I didn't wait for another explanation. This time, I stopped trying to understand them. I drove straight home, packed a small bag, and for the first time in years I didn't ask myself if I was allowed to do it. The house felt different when I came back. Not empty-watched. Like it already knew I had seen too much. My phone kept vibrating. Tom. Sophie. Unknown numbers. I didn't answer. I placed the phone face down on the kitchen table, right next to the papers that had started all of this. And then I did something I had never done before. I called a lawyer. Not theirs. Mine. My voice shook only once when I said the words. I want out of everything I signed. There was a pause on the other end. Then. That may not be simple, Mrs. Collins. Simple. Nothing about my life had been simple for a long time. Within hours, I was signing new documents. Reversals. Restrictions. Legal separation from the agreements tied to my identity. And with every signature, something inside me started returning. Not trust. Not peace. Control. That night, Tom showed up at my house. I didn't open the door immediately. He knocked again. Harder this time. Mom, please, his voice came through the wood. You don't understand what you're doing. I finally opened the door. He looked tired. Not like a son. Like someone losing a system that depended on him. You're stopping everything, he said. I looked at him for a long moment. And then I said the only thing that felt true anymore. No, Tom. I'm stopping being used. His face changed. Just for a second. And in that second, I understood something I hadn't before. This wasn't just about money. It was about control. And I had just stepped outside of it. I thought that would be the end. It wasn't. 2 days later, I received a final email from the legal office linked to the structure. One line only. Your withdrawal may trigger secondary obligations you are not currently aware of. I read it 3 times. And for the first time, I didn't feel fear. I felt clarity. Because I finally understood the shape of everything I had been part of. This wasn't just a family. It was a system built around trust and then expanded far beyond it. When Sophie finally came to see me, she didn't look angry. She looked afraid. Mom, she said quietly, standing at the door, you don't know what they told us this would do for us. For us. That word again. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. I know exactly what it did, I said. Silence between us. Then she whispered, we didn't think you'd find out like this. Like this. As if there was a better way to discover your own life had been structured without you. I looked at her for a long moment. And I didn't feel anger anymore. Not really. Just distance. The kind that doesn't heal, but clarifies. I gave you everything, I said softly. And you turned me into something I don't recognize. She didn't answer. Because there was nothing left that could fix it. When she left, I didn't watch her go. I stayed at the door for a while longer, breathing in a life that finally felt like it belonged to me again. And I realized something simple but irreversible. Sometimes betrayal doesn't explode. It restructures your entire reality quietly until you don't recognize your own reflection anymore. And the hardest part isn't finding the truth. It's realizing how long you were inside it without seeing it at all. So now I ask you this. If your own life was built around you without you ever being fully included, would you fight to stay inside it? Or walk away the moment you finally understood it?